Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more informative content like this. It's very likely that if you're going to start a weight loss diet, your doctor has recommended that you completely eliminate bread from your diet. In this video, we're not going to discuss this decision, but we're simply going to explain the 6 major changes, because we've grouped them into 6 groups. 6 groups of changes or side effects that you're going to notice, a series of sensations that may even alarm you at first, but which are completely normal, and that we consider very interesting for you to know about. Okay, so I won't ramble on anymore, and here in the video I'll explain what they are. The first change you're going to notice in your body, as soon as you start to stop eating bread regularly, is that you're going to deflate. Be careful, you're not losing fat in this process. In this initial phase, you're not losing any fat at all, you're just losing water. This is because carbohydrates are stored in our body in the form of glycogen, and therefore glycogen contains or retains large amounts of water around it. As you're no longer taking in that amount of carbohydrates, your body mobilizes the glucose it has stored quickly in the form of glycogen, and therefore loses a lot of fluid. This means that as a first effect of stopping eating bread, you lose weight. But it's a weight solely and exclusively of water. Secondly, you're also going to lose weight. This already occurs after several days. This is due to the fact that, logically, you reduce your caloric intake. In the vast majority of diets, and we have to recognize that bread, especially white bread, which is, let's say, from my point of view, the most negative, still has an important caloric contribution. By reducing this caloric intake, on average you can lose about 14 to 18 Oz per week. These grams, after a week of not eating bread, will already be weight losses, weight loss also linked to the loss of fat. Not as before, basically to the loss of water. It's also important, and this is something that many people don't realize, that when you stop eating bread, you're going to feel more unstable at first. You're going to notice a series of changes in your behavior and certain physiological repercussions. What is this due to? Well, it's basically due to the fact that our brain does not feed on fats, it does not feed on proteins, it feeds basically on glucose. And it obtains glucose from glycogen, the initial form of carbohydrate storage. By introducing less carbohydrates into the diet because you're removing bread, what's going to happen is that your body, in order to feed the brain, has to mobilize fats. This mobilization of fats from the body has the side effect of increasing ketones in the blood, ketone bodies. And these ketone bodies are responsible for you having, for example, you're going to notice that your breath smells a little rancid. You'll also notice fatigue, dry mouth, and obviously also dizziness, weakness, sometimes even nausea, and problems falling asleep. Basically, as I say, because your brain is going to have a little more difficulty obtaining the food it likes the most, which is glucose. It will get it just the same, don't worry, but it will get it in a way that's not as easy as it had before. After 14 to 15 days of not eating bread, you'll also notice that the desire, so to speak, to eat inappropriate things, the famous cravings, is significantly reduced. You'll notice that, and this is true, you don't have as much predisposition, as much gluttony, so to speak, for those especially caloric foods. This is because glucose has a brutal addictive power. In short, it's as if it were a drug. It's not a drug, obviously, but for our brains it behaves the same. Therefore, after about 2 weeks of not ingesting as much glucose, you've already gone through that withdrawal phase, in quotes, and you're going to have less desire to eat inappropriate things. Also, and this is important for you to know, stopping eating bread not only means a decrease in the intake of carbohydrates, but it will also mean a lower intake of, for example, B vitamins. You're also going to have less iron. You're going to have certain minerals in less quantity, such as magnesium. And this lack of iron, B vitamins, etc., is not going to mean more than a greater general weakness. You're going to feel much more down at first. It's important that in the food you eat, in the diet you're taking, you know how to introduce especially vitamin B and iron, because as I say, stopping eating bread will mean that these fundamental nutrients will be in lesser quantity. You're also going to notice, but this is going to be noticed in the very long term, and this is the 6th group of side effects of stopping eating bread. In this case, it's a positive side effect. You're going to notice, as I say, a better cardiac quality. You're going to notice that your heart is healthier. This is not noticed overnight, but you'll notice little by little that you get less tired, that you have, this I'm telling you in the long term, not the first days, when, as you've seen, I've told you before, You may have feelings of weakness. This is because, especially in white bread, there are high levels of palmitoleic acid, and palmitoleic acid is still a fatty acid responsible for many of the cardiovascular problems that modern populations usually have. Therefore, especially having eliminated that white bread, and thus reducing the level of palmitoleic acid, will generate a much better cardiac health for us. Well, that's all. I hope this video has been of interest to you, and we'll see you next time. Take good care of yourselves.